My brother is a sunny boy, my sister has a baby.
Hello again! In a previous video, I talked about interwar Germany, but it's a good idea to describe this period in more detail. First, looking at the Weimar Republic, then taking a look at the Nazi regime. In this episode, I'll focus on the former, to see how it performed and how it gave way to a dictatorship. In 1918, Germany attempted one more time to break through on the Western Front and take Paris, as a last gamble, before the economic and military situation forced a surrender. The country was essentially on its knees, having lost all colonies and access to overseas trade routes, while the Entente was becoming more powerful as fresh American troops were arriving in Europe, along with more supplies and food. The offensive was first successful, but then petered out as Germany ran out of troops and equipment. So a retreat had to be ordered, basically ending German aspirations to win the Great War. In November 1918, a revolution ended the monarchy in Germany. Both the Kaiser and the King of Bavaria had to flee. A new republic was born. The Social Democrats made a pact with the army. Both sides promised to work together and not harm each other's interests. Not everybody agreed with this change. Communists like Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht wanted to establish a far-left dictatorship, while right-wing organizations like the Freikorps also wanted a different system, either a conservative regime or a return to the monarchy. Due to ongoing fights in Berlin, the National Assembly convened in Weimar, where they agreed on a new constitution. Democratic parties enjoyed a comfortable majority, but the republic was unstable. It had to fight both extremes, while also dealing with food shortages, mass inflation, the restrictions imposed by the Versailles Peace Treaty, and the naval blockade, which was only lifted in June 1919. The public was angered by the treaty, which put all blame on Germany for the war. It gave Alsace-Lorraine back to France, and forced the country to pay huge reparations. German colonies were divided between France and Great Britain. The Rhineland was occupied, and the government kept printing money to pay debts, which led to hyperinflation. Germany then defaulted on some payments, to which the French replied with the occupation of the Ruhr, a highly developed industrial region, leading to strikes and passive resistance, which damaged both economies. The Bavarian Soviet Republic was proclaimed. This was followed by the Kapp Putsch. The former was eliminated with the help of the army, while the latter collapsed due to a nationwide general strike. In 1922, the Republican government signed a treaty with the Soviet Union, which allowed Germany to train more officers and develop new technologies in secret. But political instability continued. In 1923, just a year later, the beer hall putsch was organized by the National Socialists, but it failed after a few hours. Adolf Hitler, leader of the Nazis, was sent to prison, but he would only remain there long enough to finish his book. Others got off with more lenient sentences, which showed a clear sympathy towards right-wing political actors. From 1924, the economy and the political situation became more stable. Inflation finally slowed down. The Daves Plan helped with reparations. The Treaty of Locarno a year later finalized the country's new western borders and reduced tension between France and Germany. This was followed by Germany's admission to the League of Nations in 1926. The country's international standing improved, but the government frequently changed, as unstable coalitions collapsed repeatedly. A brief cultural renaissance took place during these years, as Germany became more Americanized, with Hollywood movies and progressive architecture. But many resented this process, claiming that traditional values were being destroyed. As for newly implemented social policies, along with a tax reform, working hours were reduced, health insurance and unemployment benefits were improved, with increasing housing construction and more protection for tenants. The brief golden age ended in 1929 with the Wall Street crash. US banks could not provide the same lines of credit, resulting in a crisis and mass unemployment. After social democratic chancellors like Gustav Stresemann, the centrist Heinrich Brüning was appointed by President von Hindenburg, himself a right-wing politician and former leader of the Imperial Army. Brüning had no majority in parliament, so he relied more and more on the emergency powers granted to the president to operate independently. When the Reichstag was dissolved, the NSDAP became the second largest party in a new election, but the Communist Party of Germany, the KPD, also increased its votes. Political violence returned, with street fights, while the conservatives tried everything they could to somehow stabilize the situation and preserve the republic. Cutting state expenses and deflation didn't help. It just pushed the economy into a long depression, while benefits were also reduced, which angered the people. Other countries, like Great Britain, abandoned the gold standard and devalued their currency, which made their exports more competitive, undermining Germany's position. By 1932, the conservatives were done. They badly needed Hitler's seats in parliament to be able to govern, so the new chancellor, Franz von Papen, tried to ensure his cooperation, but he failed, even though he lifted a previous ban on the SA, the Nazi Party's paramilitary organization. A new election was called. The Nazis became the largest party, while the communists also gained in strength. Hitler once again refused to form a coalition government, partly because the left wing of his own party would have taken this as a betrayal of everything they had worked for. General Kurt von Schleicher became chancellor. Yet another election was called. Everybody hoped that this time the results would be more clear. Instead, the Nazis lost 2 million votes, so Schleicher tried to woo the left wing of the Nazi Party, along with the Social Democrats and the Christian trade unions, to somehow form a stable government. This also failed. For a brief moment, the army seemed likely to take over, but then von Papen finally convinced President Hindenburg that he would be able to form a new government with the German National People's Party and the Nazis. Hitler would become chancellor, his party would hold only 3 of the 11 cabinet seats, so he could be controlled by von Papen and von Hindenburg. In January 1933, it was all done, the new coalition government was set up, and the Nazis started to eliminate the opposition. In hindsight, the slow and gradual devolution of the Weimar Republic was unavoidable. The Great Depression caused a turmoil. Traditional political parties were weakened, while both extremes gained popularity, as their leaders promised quick and easy solutions. At the same time, the constitution gave too much power to the president, who was able to govern without parliament, issuing emergency decrees. When they saw no other alternative, they turned to the Nazis, who they hoped could be manipulated. In this, they were wrong. This sums up the period of the Weimar Republic. As you can see, it was a relatively short and tumultuous time in Germany's history. In the next episode, I will talk about subsequent Nazi decisions and how their dictatorship was formed. See you around!
My brother is a sunny boy, my sister has a baby. Wie schwer ist Englisch, oi oi oi.